You don't want to die of cold. Toll free.
Okay, well, let's go forward in time. How many years would it be? 2018?
The third, 41 years?
True.
1977 to 2018. Yep, I think you're right.
41.
Yeah.
A darkness swirls at the center of a world-renowned dance company, one that will engulf the artistic director, an ambitious young dancer, and a grieving psychotherapist. Some will succumb to the nightmare, others will finally wake up. Directed by Luca Guadagnino. What? How to say?
Guadagnino.
There you go.
Luca Guadagnino.
That guy. Written by Dario Argento, Daria Nicolodi, and David Kajanic. I don't know, man. People get a name like Smith or something, right? Like, what the hell is
this? Yeah, Smith, the name in Italy that really takes over.
Yeah.
It's crazy. We're just shortening it down, I'll tell you what, man. When I was doing the research on this one, when I saw that 2.5 hour runtime, I immediately got
I warned you it was long.
Because even a movie I really fucking like should not be 2.5 hours long. Even fucking Dead Alive, I love that movie, but if it was 2.5 hours long, I'd be like, dude, Peter Jackson, cut a fucking half hour, or at least a half hour. Preferably an hour off of that. What the fuck?
There were a few times just because I would like pause to take notes, and I remember at one point being like an hour in and being and seeing that there is still an hour and a half left of this.
Preaching to the choir, buddy. Yeah,
they took a walk with us.
The one thought that I had, it came out in 2018. I feel like if this would have been made 2.5, 3 years later, it would have been a series. We would have had an 8-part series, and I think that would have done it actually some justice to kind of drag out some of those plot lines to make them, instead of trying to cram all of these different ideas into this one story for 2.5 hours. Maybe stretching it out would have made it not drag when it did,
Yeah. Oh no, I think you'd have some episodes in that series that would just be boring as fuck, because there's some stuff in this I was like, man, this is really pointless bullshit that they've got going on. But I'll give it credit.
I feel like there's a lot of series right now that do that though. Especially something with like these artistic dance scenes. I could just see entire episodes with like 15-minute dance scenes. I'm not saying it'd be a good idea. I'm just saying that I think
I do give it some credit though. Like the music at the beginning of this is not grating my soul. And it was funny because like I heard that Argento said that there was no music in this. That was one of the things he mentioned. Now he might have meant like grating, make you feel nervous music, because this was an enjoyable score. There was like 3 songs on here. I was like, those are pretty good songs.
Yeah, it's Tom York from Radiohead.
Yeah. Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah, I caught that too. And it's funny because there are a lot of real Radiohead-ish, Tom York-ish, especially a lot of the drumming when he brings in the percussion at a lot of great times in it as well.
Yeah. That also probably has some benefit to, I bet he scored the movie, right? He probably didn't just make this music and then
he scored
he scored the film. Yeah. He composed all that stuff. He did it.
Yeah, I tried to maintain an open mind. Even though there was that long runtime, clearly the one dude reminded me of fucking Mike DeWine. I don't know if you guys know who Mike DeWine is. He's an Ohio
governor, right? Your governor.
He's an Ohio governor, and the old guy, the psychiatrist, looked just fucking like him. I thought like an older
was that
version.
Tilda Swinton? Was that
Yeah,
Tilda
or
Swinton
was
in
it
Old
Conan
People?
O'Brien?
Yeah. Because I was like, I kept waiting for a reveal. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I was like waiting for some reveal where she's like both the people or something. But yeah.
Yeah, Tilda Swinton, and you know what I kept waiting on her to do, which I thought would have looked really fucking bizarre, is fucking dance. Why didn't we see her dance one fucking time in this thing? She was supposed to be like the prima ballerina, right, or something. Like she wrote dances.
It wasn't her job to dance. It was her academy. She was running
You
that
think
shit.
we would see her show a bitch something to do, like she'd be like,
I don't know.
this.
It's another blink and you'll miss it. Like there's a part where when they're dreaming, when she starts, when Dakota Johnson starts like realizing the dreams and stuff, like, and turns them back on her, like you see that she turns the dreams back on Tilda Swinton, like the girl climbing the wall and shit. Like that's her character. That's Tilda Swinton's character.
Oh, okay.
So like it was super quick cuts. There might have been that person dancing. I don't know, but it was super quick cuts.
I was trying to keep a positive mind because of the runtime, but the color scheme of this movie, talk about the total opposite. Like Argento's so colorful, and this thing's beige as shit. It's like beige.
Right.
And
even the building, like you were talking about the lighting in the building, and I was thinking how this one it's the opposite. How everything is dark in the building. How except for the actual dance rooms, the hallways, the foyer that they try to sneak around in on marble floor with what clogs it sounds like.
Yeah, right.
Sneak around in the foyer of it.
Swinton, man, whenever I first saw her, I laughed because you see her in like a reflection, and it definitely looks like Conan O'Brien. It almost made me wish it was him. Like
God.
how much better would this movie have been if it was him in a wig? Come on. Like being serious too, like the scene where the girl gets bent and broken via voodoo dance magic is probably cooler than anything in the original film. But it would have looked better in some red moody lighting or something. Just saying. This may be a case where if you could somehow combine the best parts of both of the films, you could have like something really great. Like instead I kind of felt middle of the road about both of these things. This one though, I enjoyed more than the original. So that surprised me. As long as fuck as it is. Now this is what's weird. This one I enjoyed more. The other one is more rewatchable. I won't ever watch this thing again. I will never ever watch this movie again in my life. But I might put that one on, even though I enjoyed this one more. Very strange. I certainly enjoyed the soundtrack much more. Like I said, I also appreciate how they kind of cleaned the story up a little bit because they basically used the same story.
Yeah,
and Argento said
same basic script, and then Luca did whatever he wanted.
And Argento said, why do a remake if you're not going to keep it the same? And if you're going to change it, why make something different? I think that if he would have done any other movie about witchcraft in a ballet school, that people would have been like, that's a ripoff. Yeah. The only thing he could do is,
I felt like there was better storytelling in this one.
Mm-hmm.
You have with the way that you have with the Patricia in the beginning when she's talking to the psychiatrist and laying out her whole theories. So we're not guessing as to why everything is going weird. And it becomes more of that investigating a mystery than you had in the first one, where it was, oh, I guess there's a mystery. Whereas this, it's, there is in scene one, this problem.
And then like there's witchcraft.
Right.
Yeah.
There's witchcraft. It's that the dancing is connected to the witchcraft. I don't think you knew that. If that was the case in the original, I don't think you knew that. I didn't know that. I didn't know what the witches had the ability to do. But Yeah, I definitely appreciated that. It clarifies the group's intent. Like it makes it you're like, oh, I know what these fucking people are trying to do now. Much more concise. I did like how they brought back Jessica Harper to play Anka, I think is what
Mhm.
her name is.
Yep.
That was a cool thing. And you know, they did a little tribute to Argento at the end by throwing finally some color in that last segment. The crazy ending.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The ending is very cool. That ending was awesome. I loved how they incorporated all the dancing into that ritual. The little twist at the end and the bloodbath that ensues after that. It was just overall more enjoyable, despite being an hour over what it should be. I gave it an 8.
Mhm.
I bet you could edit it down to an hour and a half, and then I bet you could get a 10 for me. If you cut all the bullshit out of it and smushed it together in about an hour 45, you might get a 10 out of me. But yeah, who's next? Steve,
That's
you
a
up?
surprise.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was surprised myself.
I am super shocked. I thought you were
Yeah.
gonna talk about how much of a slog this was because it was so fucking long. I thought that
Yeah.
was
I was
gonna be
lined
your
up
whole
to hate
argument.
it.
I bet you were.
Yeah.
I'm pleasantly surprised. Cool.
I had to
Yeah.
force
I mean, I
myself to
did have
watch
the
the whole
note
thing.
when I was taking my notes, and I tried to delineate them by act, and by the time I got to Act 6, I wrote too many acts next to
Yeah.
it. that 6 acts is too many acts. It was a much different body count in this one as well, because especially that first, when Olga dies, and she doesn't really die, she's just mutilated and drug off. And it did a lot more. I feel like this movie really recognized that there are things scarier than dying, and I think that is I feel like a lot of horror movies don't understand that, and I feel like this movie really captured that. I did think it was too long. I feel like they filled most of that time with storytelling, even if that storytelling did kind of drag. Um, the parts I found, a lot of the parts that did drag didn't bore me. I found that some of the storytelling stuff bored me more than the parts that seemed like they dragged. Like the psychiatrist walking home, giving this nice little snapshot of 1977 Berlin. It was just kind of an interesting thing to see, and those long drawn out dance scenes that they all kind of went on too long, but I was also kind of like here for it. Um, so it was, and I Dakota Johnson was in a show called Ben and Kate back in 2012, 2013, and I had a huge thing for her back then. And so it was also, seeing her in this role was a very different. I don't think she's a very compelling actor when it comes to serious stuff. I feel like she does better with lighter comedic stuff. But I still think that she carried her role. But there were times that I felt like there could have been someone with a little bit more power behind it. Um, but but I guess that kind of reveals itself at the end. Yeah, and I really liked how I like this one more than the other one. I gave this one an 8 as well. That I felt like the storytelling was really good, even though the pacing wasn't quite as good.
Yeah, I like a long movie, especially if it's enthralling, and this was definitely enthralling. When it was announced, I didn't know how I was gonna feel about it, but I was stoked because it was, came to Amazon straight away because it was an Amazon film.
Mhm.
So I watched it right away and was just blown away. The music, awesome. Tom
Mhm.
York just knocked it out of the park. That main theme that they dance to when Mia Goth comes back up from her broken leg,
Mhm.
That distorted piano and it keeps getting faster and faster and faster. It was really good. Tilda Swinton, love her to death. She's like an androgynous goth Meryl Streep. Like I will watch anything that she is in. She was all done up as Helena Marcus in this. That was great makeup. Those little hand tumor thingies all hanging off her. She was literally decomposing and the water was like coming out of her at the end. You know what I mean? Like that was cool makeup. I would have liked to have seen more of that. And then the makeup as Dr. Klemperer, like
Right.
did you realize that was Tilda Swinton like acting?
It took me about
No.
about a half an hour of it
You
Okay.
know
before I
what? It makes
realized. Then I
so
was like,
much
I think this
fucking
is her.
sense now, dude. Oh my
Yeah.
god. I was looking
So I had
at
to
the
look it up.
cast, right? I was looking
Yeah.
at the cast, trying to figure out who that old dude was. Because I thought he was somebody else from something. And if it was her, you're saying. The
Yes, it's her.
psychologist, yeah?
Yeah.
She was wearing makeup. Yeah, she played
Yeah.
3 roles.
Who did I think it was? I can't even remember. I was, you know how
So
that
check it out.
shit,
When
you're like,
she
yeah.
purposely did that on IMDb to like she put it under a whole different name. Like
Yeah.
No
like
kidding.
yeah.
I didn't
Just
find
to
a
like tell,
name at all. I couldn't find that
it might have
character.
been removed. Maybe she didn't do it at all.
If you Google it, there's people talking about it. That's how I found it. I was like, is Tilda Swinton the old man in Suspiria remake?
Yeah, but she's
And I
not
got,
like pretending to be the old man.
No. Yeah.
She's literally wearing the prosthetics
Yeah.
to act.
Yeah. Exactly.
Her Madame Blank was so good. Like, don't get me wrong, Joan Bennett, she gave that the aristocratic old ballerina in the original, which was fine, but this movie just did everything better in my
Yeah.
opinion. It um I've watched this a few times and I paused to read the diary pages, that the doctors look through, and it specifically meant mothers from, Greek mythology. They're like the 3 fates. And like the diagram that they were going to dance to, because she was supposed to be the one that Marcus was going to go into.
Right.
Because he even wrote down simulacrum, which is the switching of bodies. That Olga dance. I remember seeing that before it came out, and I wish I wouldn't have. I would have loved to have been super surprised because that was the athleticism of throwing herself around, and then like obviously they green screened some of the shit, but what got me was that jaw that went like slow
Yeah.
out, and her teeth were like exposed and shit, and then they're just like, all right, get her, and then it got those rib looking hooks. They look like ribs.
Yeah.
Like that's what I thought was like that's deliberate for something. I
They
wrote
kind of look like the kind of needles that
Adam,
they used to sew you up or whatever. Like,
Oh yeah, I was thinking meat hook.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Or a meat hook.
It was just like the
Yeah,
way it got super thin and then wider towards the handle. It looked like the shape of a rib. It was just weird. But cool. And then they just hook her and pick her up and haul her away, which is so.
Yeah, and they say
like
don't hurt
just
her.
a
Yeah.
vomity, piss-soaked lump of flesh because she just got contorted from magic, which was like, that's why I really, really love this movie, is because they went full on. You were right. They didn't hide that they were witches. We're witches and we got fucking politics. And it was like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
versus Marcos. And they leaned all the way into the dancing and the magic. Like I like musicals and stuff. And I really appreciate people that can dance, even if it's interpretive dance. Like I cannot move my body that way.
That's not
awesome.
true, John. I saw you dancing. I saw you dancing in the promo for your wife's band.
Oh,
Yeah.
the slow lawnmower.
Yeah.
That's me. What else did I like? Oh, let's not forget our recent darling, Mia Goth.
Oh yeah.
Like,
Yeah, I didn't even
she was
recognize her
so
until
cute.
halfway through.
She was so adorable and meek and just so sweet. And her eyes looked really cool after she got all hypnotized. And that. If you have, what's the fear of holes? Is that tryptophobia?
Sounds right.
It's
Something
yeah.
like fear holes and stuff. Those
Yeah.
holes just appearing out of nowhere in that hall. And the supposed to be pitch black, because she, but you got to be able to see what's happening. I did not hate the fact that spoiler alert, turn off now, but the
We
rebirth
don't do that.
was her, was Dakota Johnson. The
Yeah.
whole
Oh yeah.
she was Mother Superiorum, which I thought was a really cool twist. And then that
Yeah.
black elemental demon thing that just exploded all the people that voted for Marcus.
Yeah.
I thought
I was kind of wondering that you now, after at the end, getting the idea that was the thing under the floor that she was dancing to, that we're thinking it was Marco that whole time. The scene when she's dancing on the floor and she wants to stay to the floor, she doesn't want to jump, and you see the hand coming up against it.
That was Marcus. That thing that was like chubby and the nails were gross and the skin was gross. That thing was like slick and black and thin.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
That was definitely Marcos, because she even said they were Blanc and Tanner were sitting and reading those magazines. She's like, you put Helena Marcos in a closet under the floor.
Under the
it
floor.
was like kind of funny. Yeah, it was kind of
Oh
funny.
yeah,
Like,
that's right. You did. I remember
nuts?
that now.
Yeah.
Like, you put
Yeah.
fucking like Queen Witch under the floor. Like, I thought that was funny as shit. Like, well, she wanted to.
She wanted to be there. Yeah.
But I really, really like the very end when the doctor gets some peace of mind, and then he doesn't have to live with it ever again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sad and like vindicating at the same time because of what he went through. He started out just trying to help a girl who thought he was who he thought was delusional, and it's going to a full-on rebirth of one of the three fates. And he's there, he's the witness, he's there to watch it all. So like, I have zero problems with this movie whatsoever. Maybe Dakota was a little, you're right, Steve, like could have been someone with a little bit
a little flat. Coming
out of like rural
Ohio. Mennonite, yeah,
exactly,
Amish Ohio.
Yeah, I feel like, okay, her meekness and stuff kind of, but it was like, I don't know,
Frank, we know girls like that, don't we?
but that aside,
I mean, not personally, really. I've seen them though. I've seen them around.
That aside, I've rambled on.
Former Mennonites.
Yeah.
I don't know a lot of former Mennonites, but I see Mennonites. They are among us.
Yeah.
And at least in my community,
Ohio.
you live in Columbus. So you don't see.
I see all kinds of people. I see shit all the time.
He gets around.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I went to college in central Pennsylvania, so I'm also. I've been stuck behind a buggy on a highway before.
Yeah.
Totally. So
What'd you give it, John?
I gave it a 10. This is a 10 for me. I like this movie.
He's knocking 10s all day
Well,
today.
Well, so I mean, I'm not going to harp on too much. You guys, between the three of you, brought together everything I loved and didn't like, about the movie. I'll just hit some points. Again, Tom York. I can't stress enough how surprised I was the first time I watched this. And again the second time now, how amazing the soundtrack is. His music is great. Yeah, I love Tom York. I have every Radiohead album and some deep cuts. So that's one of my favorite bands. So I was just like elated that he did this. So that's great. Again, the color scheme is rolled back like everybody talked about, but it is shot like a 70s movie. They at least tried to keep the aesthetic of that. It's set in 77. So you've got that vibe still, a different country, right? I don't think the first one was in Berlin, right? It was in.
No, it was.
It was in another German city, but
Well, they were both German, yeah.
Okay. But anyways, I agree with Steve. I liked the little sidetrack story about with the therapist. That whole love story was really interesting to me. I'll be honest, I could have watched an hour and a half movie about that.
Yeah.
That would have been cool with me. I mean, I love the cabin at the end too, with their initials, overgrown and being used. It's pretty cool. There's a lot to like in this movie. My problem with it is, and I got to side with Frank. Normally I don't, but I got to side with Frank on this. I felt like 36 minutes of this movie could have just been fucking gone. It could have just been not there, and this movie would have flowed a lot better and been a tight, 2-hour movie with a good end, with a great ending. Let's be honest, this ending's great. But and that's one other little side problem too. If I'm gonna bring up that problem, is the ending. It's like fucking Lord of the Rings. This thing ends like 3 times. Like I was like, oh, like, okay, now we're gonna sit here and talk to the guy, and I did like that. Don't get me wrong, I liked that he got closure. I liked the end of that story, but at the same time, I'm like, cut fucking 20 minutes of that weird dancing out. And again, I get it's got its point. It's got its fucking point. I get it, but it could have been pared down, and then we could have had that
trimmed off. Yeah, shave off anything where it's radio chatter over a scene. Think about how many times that happened, where it's like they're giving you the information about the political shit that's going on that is really just a side trick.
Yeah, and I also want to say, Chloe Moretz, right? That's her name.
Yeah.
She was great at the beginning. Like the other girl in the original, we don't know shit about her. Like Steve was saying, this we get to know her, and I like that actress. I always think she's great. She does horror movies a lot, and she does interesting shit. She was in a sci-fi series recently, not Sci-Fi Channel, but a science fiction story on Apple TV. She does interesting stuff, and she's always solid. So I wanted to say that too. I know we talked about a lot of actresses; they're all great, but she did a really good job for such a small part with that as well. But I liked, I liked when I found out that was Tilda Swinton. Sometimes I don't really like her. I know that you said you really like. Sometimes I don't, but she was fucking great in this, in all 3 roles, and I was just impressed. And so, I mean, some of the dream sequences I thought were a little long too, but if you're going to watch this movie, you're going to have an experience. And like Frank said, I probably won't watch this one again. I've seen it twice now, and I don't think I would sit through it again unless I was doing a Suspiria day again, where I watched both of them back to back. I might do, but I give it an 8 out of 10. I think this is something people should watch for sure. So
right on. It got a way better reception than I was thinking. Cool.
Yeah, there was like at least 2 or 3 times where I was like, "Do I like this? Do I like this?"
You're like that Fry meme. You're like, not sure if like this or not.
Yeah.
When you hit me with that time up front, that's a bump, and then like the color palette was just drab, bump. But the soundtrack was that can really do a lot for me. And so the fact that there were at least 3 songs that were actual songs, it felt like, not just score, but like things that I would be like, let's hear that fucking Tom York song again. It's just, after the first movie killing me and making me think like, what the fuck? I want to write a letter to all the guys in Goblin and just ask them what up.
Dear
can I
Goblin.
get a cut? Can I get a cut without all the noise? Because I do like that theme. But anyways, let's get into show and tell. I